Skip. Welcome to the Dutch Stormchase Convention 2014, and really thank you for sharing your knowledge and your thoughts about storm chasing in the United States of America, especially in Tornado Alley.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
Alright, can you please introduce yourself as a storm chaser?
Hi, my name's Skip Talbot. I've been storm chasing for about the last 10 years now. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I recently moved downstate to Springfield, Illinois. I'm a software developer by trade. Storm chasing is a hobby for me.
Alright. From what age did you become interested in severe weather?
When I was 7 years old, the town of Plainfield, Illinois was destroyed by a F5 tornado, and that captivated me at a young age. Since then, I've become very interested in tornadoes and felt compelled to witness them. So since that early age, I've been studying and researching tornadoes, and finally when I was in college, after I read up a lot on it, I started storm chasing on my own.
Alright, what made you do it?
I have this weird obsession with severe weather and tornadoes. It consumes my life. I have to read about tornadoes, I have to see tornadoes. It's just this really strangely compelled to witness and document them. So when there's severe weather, I have to go out and actually see it. And that's why I chase, just for my own sake of witnessing this phenomenon of weather.
What is the passion all about then?
Yeah, there's a lot of facets to why I storm chase. There's the challenge in the forecast, trying to figure out what the weather's doing, trying to get the forecast right. It's the beauty in the sky, going outdoors, enjoying nature, seeing something beautiful and majestic and something very powerful at the same time, something that's rare, something that you don't see every day. Being able to witness that phenomenon is awe-inspiring.
Is there also a warning thing in it?
Oh, sure. Sure. A lot of storm chasers try to give back. They try to be helpful while they're out there. One of the ways to do this is to report the severe weather they see to the National Weather Service. So when you see a tornado, large hail, damaging winds, you can hop on Spotter Network, call 911, talk to the police, or you can call the Weather Service office directly, and then they will use your information to issue tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings.
Okay. Is this something you need to do as a storm chaser, you think?
I feel that most every responsible storm chaser should make it a priority to report the severe weather that they see. Rather than just focusing on getting video and pictures, a storm chaser should put the camera down for a second and just take a minute to report what they're seeing. Because that information is really helpful to people, and I think storm chasers are in the position to be responsible and act in a way that they can give back to the communities that are being impacted by these storms.
All right.
The organization that I help run is called Storm Assist, and Storm Assist is a nonprofit organization. We're 100% volunteer. We're a loose-knit group of storm chasers, and what we do is we raise aid for tornado victims. So what we did on this latest series of storms that struck the South was we had a fundraiser and we sold DVDs, t-shirts, and calendars, and as a result we're going to be donating some, we're going to give directly to the victims this time. I believe we're handing out debit cards to some of the people that lost their homes and had damage from these latest storms and tornadoes.
Great thing, thank you. Let's take a look at the most heavy tornado of most. How do you describe the Reno, the tornado?
Yeah, so on May 31, 2013, last year, we were chasing near the Oklahoma City area, and we got a very large tornado near the town of El Reno, and a very famous tornado. It was the world's widest tornado on record. There might have been a wider tornado, but as far as we know, that's the widest. It was measured by Doppler radar. And also tragically, we had our first storm chaser deaths. Tim, Paul, and Carl very famous storm chasers, were killed on this tornado. So that was one of the bigger chase events for me last year.
Yeah. Did you see that coming?
In the days leading up to this event, to me it looked like basically any other severe weather setup in the Great Plains. We had the ingredients necessary for tornadoes. I can show you a couple of them here.
All right, cool.
If these show up on the video. I don't know if that's gonna, we'll see if the camera picks this up. And you can edit this out too if you want.
Yeah. Okay.
So, leading up to this event, we had basically a stationary front coming out of Kansas into northern Oklahoma. We had a triple point in northwest Oklahoma, and we had a dry line extending to the south across western Oklahoma. We had a surface low there right in southwest Oklahoma. And we had similar patterns earlier on this year with kind of a sagging cold front up to the north. The ingredients were there for tornadoes. We need 4 things for tornadoes. We need moisture, lift, shear, and instability. We had all those in place. To me, these parameters weren't particularly huge or big, and we had similar setups that busted earlier on in the year. So while I saw the ingredients were there for tornadoes, personally, I didn't think May 31 was that huge of an event. But what you see here is we had a whole lot of moisture converging right at the triple point. We had dew points over 70 degrees. That's a lot of moisture for May. And a lot of lift along these frontal boundaries here, and especially right here at the triple point. Mixed layer CAPE was forecast to be around 4,500 joules per kilogram. That's what we call extreme instability. If there's one thing that stands out on this setup, I believe it was the amount of instability we had. Just a very volatile setup. When a storm goes up in this environment, it's basically a bomb waiting to explode. We had a little bit of a 500 millibar trough. We had 50 to 60 knots of flow there, maybe a little bit of a short wave moving through at this time. That's going to provide plenty of lift and a lot of our shear across that triple point. So shear is measured by our effective shear, 50, 60 knots right there on the triple point, twice what we need for supercells. And then the storm relative helicity is a measure of the directional shear that we need. We had values of about 200 there near the triple point, which is more than enough for tornadoes. It's not a huge value, but when combined with that instability, the potential was there for violent tornadoes. So we had a significant tornado parameter at about 6, and that was centered just off the triple point. So really a bullseye target here. To me, this setup was a slam dunk. If you're out storm chasing, you should be heading to the triple point. I didn't really see much. There's some play for tornadoes on that stationary front, but really that triple point was where everybody should be. And it's rare to have such a spelled out setup for you. So parameters were there for violent tornadoes, but again, we had seen similar parameters other times this year, and so I wasn't particularly amazed by this setup, but you know, it had the potential.
All right. Because was that the danger also, that it was such a good setup and that every storm chaser went to the same region?
Yeah, when you see these kind of parameters, especially pinpointed in one particular location, and especially in central Oklahoma here, we knew that we were going to have to be on our guard today. We have a metropolitan area just to the east, Oklahoma City, home to a few million people, and at the end of May, with such a volatile setup right there in Oklahoma, we knew that there were probably going to be at least 1,000 storm chasers out. And a lot of these storm chasers are just locals from Oklahoma City, but we knew that we were going to be dealing with at least hundreds of people on any storm that went up in this area. So we'd have to be particularly careful for traffic, and we were also worried about the residents of Oklahoma City.
Okay. Did you take extra focus on picking the right spot this day?
Did I take extra thoughts on picking the right?
More focused. Did you know what was the best place, or what was kind of hard to position yourself?
Okay, our initial targeting leading up to this event, to me there were maybe 3 targets to pick from. You had your stationary front across southeast Kansas and northern Oklahoma. To me, I didn't like the ingredients that were there for tornadoes. I didn't like this target though because the 500 millibar flow paralleled this boundary, and what happens then is usually your storms train in a line along that boundary. They can interfere with each other. Another target we looked at was the dry line extending south across western Oklahoma. The dry line is often preferred by storm chasers because you get nice big isolated supercells that are by themselves, very photogenic, easy to navigate around, they're slow moving. The problem with the dry line on this particular event was that the 700 millibar temperatures were too warm, meaning we were going to have some issues with the cap. The cap was going to suppress our thunderstorm initiation. It was also going to keep the updrafts from producing tornadoes. But however, right on the triple point, everything was coming together. We had moisture convergence, we had enhanced lift, we had a lot of shear, both speed and directional. To me, this setup was just a slam dunk. Everybody was heading to the triple point, and the triple point was located right over El Reno, just west of El Reno. And El Reno had a good set of highways. Highway 40 runs east-west, 81 north and south. Just a great set of roads, utilities. To me, El Reno was the spot to be on this setup.
All right. What was the first sign? What was the first sign that it went so big?
Yeah. So basically, the Storm Prediction Center did a great job of forecasting this event. They knew that the potential for violent tornadoes was there. We had a moderate risk out, 15% hatch setup. By about 3:30, we had towering cumulus going up. Hang on a second, there's some background noise here. You can edit this out. So yeah, by about 3:30 p.m., we had towering cumulus going up just west of El Reno, and we were positioned at Lake El Reno at the time. And once we knew we were going to have supercell initiation at this location, we knew we were going to have big storms. We knew we were going to have big supercells, and that the potential was definitely there for tornadoes.
All right. How did you manage yourself at that time, or position yourself to not come in the right position?
Sure.
Or not in the wrong position, I mean, because it was pretty dangerous.
Yeah, let me get a shot here maybe that I can show you. So we had several storms go up on the triple point here in kind of a north-south line. And what we did was we positioned ourselves east ahead of these storms initially, and just to wait for one of the storms to become dominant or mature to figure out which one we wanted to go after. But staying downstream gives us plenty of time to maneuver around these storms and stay out of their path. The bottom storm, what we call tail end Charlie, became dominant, and what we did was we went back south through El Reno, and then we approached the storm heading west. And what we did initially was we stopped a few miles out in front of this storm and let the storm come to us. So we had clear air to our south, and we had a big storm to our west and our north. And as the storm approached, my thoughts were that we would have a nice set of roads to navigate around this storm and stay out of its way and out of its path.
All right. Did it work out that way, or did you get also a feeling that this could be also dangerous to me or to us?
Yeah. Let's see here. Here's a good shot. So most storms move to the northeast. The El Reno storm started out kind of with an unusual storm track. It was actually started out heading to the southeast. And so our position, which is normally safe for most storms, was not in this case because we wound up being directly in the path of the storm. And then we had a large tornado develop while we were watching the storm. And as we watched this tornado, which was very low contrast, you can kind of see the funnel here, we realized that this tornado was actually heading southeast and that we were in the path. Now, what I looked at initially was a cone-shaped tornado that was further back into the core of the storm. I wasn't initially concerned by this. I thought, okay, there's a tornado, and we've seen many of these before. We're going to have to move once it gets closer, but to me, I thought we still had some time. This tornado, to me, looked like it was a few miles away, and we'd have some time to video it. However, my chase partner noticed the bands of rain in front of the tornado. Basically, there's these streaky bands of precipitation, and these were rotating around the tornado. And she noticed the motion in these rain bands. It was extremely fast. These rain bands were whipping at tornadic speeds from left to right. And when you see that, you know you have a huge circulation. And I realized that this entire mass of storm was rotating at the speed of a tornado. And it was much closer than this funnel cloud in the background. At that point, we knew that we had a much, much larger circulation than the funnel cloud suggested, and that we would have to get out of its way quickly. Because this was such a large part of the storm, at that point we didn't have time to go north or south to get out of the path. What we had to do was go east. And all we had to do is basically run directly away from this circulation and put ground on it before we could get out of its way.
Yeah, but how did you know to go east? Because most people think, hey, I have to go to the south.
Yeah, so part of the problem with this storm, you can kind of see it in this picture, part of the problem with this storm was it was absolutely huge. And I don't think a lot of people realized this, and when people realized that they were in trouble, they were too close, they needed to get out of there, what they did was they looked and they said, where do I have to go to be safe? And they saw to the south here, the air is nice and clear, it looks clean down there, we can get out of the way of the tornado and we'll be where the sun is shining. So a lot of people attempted to go south. And what happened was, because the tornado was moving southeast, it was moving this way, a lot of people were north of this tornado. They were up here. So when they went south, what they actually wound up doing was they wound up crossing the tornado's path. They were basically racing this train across the tracks. And they were hoping to beat the train before it hit them. And a lot of storm chasers didn't make it. They went south, trying to get to clear air here. And some of them wound up driving directly into the tornado just because they were trying to race the tornado across its path and they didn't have time to do it because the tornado was so phenomenally large.
Yeah. Was that the biggest problem, that the tornado was that large or that fast, that the most storm chasers underestimated this tornado?
Yeah, we had a lot of exceptional attributes to this tornado that made it very, very dangerous. This tornado had a maximum width of 2.6 miles, which is, again, a record size. And a lot of storm chasers didn't realize this because the wind field is much larger than the funnel suggests. The other thing is the tornado looked like rain for a lot of its life. So storm chasers see this big area of rain, they think, oh, that's just the rear flanking downdraft, when instead it was a very large tornado. And also the tornado changed direction several times, and because it looked like rain, a lot of storm chasers didn't realize this motion change. And the tornado also peaked out at a top speed of 55 miles an hour, which is very, very fast for a tornado. So with the combination of size, speed, and direction changes, it was the perfect mix to get a whole lot of storm chasers in trouble. And I think we had at least a dozen storm chasers that were hit by this tornado.
Were you scared at the moment?
When we took our escape route, there was a little bit of anxiety and apprehension, a little bit of fear, yeah. And just briefly though, once we started moving away from it, to me I felt more confident that we were going to get away from this tornado, that we had time to maneuver away from it. However, I didn't realize the actual danger of the situation until after the chase. I didn't know this was a 2-mile wide tornado. I didn't know that it was just 1 minute behind us, and that had, we gotten stuck there, we would have wound up like many of the other chasers. I didn't realize the scale of the danger until afterwards, until we realized that it was an F5 capable tornado and the actual magnitude of it.
Did you feel lucky after that, when you heard about the losses of the lives and the hugeness of this tornado?
Yeah, did you say lucky? I'm sorry, my connection's a little spotty sometimes. We felt very fortunate to be able to get out of there. And one of the reasons we were able to get away from this tornado was because it made a left turn. And so while we were running east with the tornado directly behind us, the tornado finally made a left turn and moved away from us. And that put us out of the path. But unfortunately, everyone who was north of the tornado was now in the path. And the fatalities that we saw with this tornado, Tim and Paul Samaras and Carl Young, and also there was an amateur storm chaser from Oklahoma City, Richard Henderson. These guys were north of the tornado, and when that tornado made a left turn, they found themselves in the path. and they did not have time to get out of its way.
How did you feel about their losses when you heard it?
Yeah, we didn't hear about the deaths until a couple days afterwards when the news finally got out. It was unbelievable at first. I couldn't believe it. Tim Samaras is one of the most experienced and well-respected storm chasers in the field. That he's the first storm chaser to get killed by a tornado is absolutely unbelievable to me. I don't expect it to be the most experienced in the field. So the initial thought was disbelief. We thought it was rumors, but then as it sunk in and as we realized it, we were just absolutely devastated. Tim Samaras was a role model to me, a hero basically, someone I looked up to, aspired to be like. It was absolutely devastating when we heard that he was killed, and because of that, I felt compelled to study this tornado, to figure out what it did, what went wrong, what storm chasers could have done differently so that they would not have been put in so much danger. Basically, what can we learn from this event so that it doesn't happen again? Because we had storm chaser deaths, that was a big part of the motivation for why I felt that we had to study this event, to analyze it, to discuss it, and figure out what happened. These storm chasers that died, to me, are people that are very much like me, people that I was trying to be like, and I never want to see that happen again. I don't want to see another storm chaser killed by a tornado. If the situation is avoidable, if there were some mistakes that were made, that we can learn from it and work to avoid in the future.
What lessons should be taken from this Reno-tornado? What did you find out?
Okay, after looking at the radar and GPS positions of the storm chasers that were hit by this tornado, there were several, to me, very obvious things that jumped out that storm chasers were doing that were putting them in grave danger. And the first thing is the most important lesson that I learned from this particular event that I see storm chasers routinely doing wrong is that when they recognize that they're in danger and they need to take their escape route, a lot of storm chasers are crossing the tornado's path in order to escape. So we saw it a lot on El Reno, storm chasers going south on US 81. When the tornado is moving east, they're north of the tornado, and the tornado is moving east, and they're crossing the tornado to get south. And some of them are getting hit by the tornado in this process. Tim Samaras was heading east while the tornado was moving northeast. He too was trying to cross the tornado's path to get away from it. Mike Bettis of the Weather Channel was hit trying to go south. Brandon Sullivan was hit trying to go south. A lot of chasers did this, and a lot of chasers are picking escape routes that cross the tornado's path, and this is incredibly dangerous. When you pick an escape route, your escape route should move directly away from the tornado. So if you're north of the tornado, head north into the hail away from the tornado. If you're east of the tornado and it's super close to you, head east, get directly away from the tornado. So to me, that was the biggest lesson learned, is don't cross the tornado's path. When we had a 2.5 mile wide tornado, it finally bit a lot of people because they didn't have time to get out of the way. The next big lesson that I saw from this event was maintaining situational awareness. If you don't know where the tornado is, if you can't see the tornado, if you're not sure which way it's moving, you need to take your escape route and get away from the storm. And a lot of chasers did not have that situational awareness. They didn't know where the tornado was.
Did it surprise you that so much storm chasers made, obviously, the wrong decision at the day?
Given the mix of attributes of this tornado, its size and motion and speed, and its location relative to Oklahoma City, I guess I don't find it that surprising that so many storm chasers were hit by this tornado. A lot of storm chasers like to get very close to this tornado. A lot of storm chasers are making these mistakes in positioning, and to me, we finally had an event where we were going to have a lot of storm chasers get hit. We just had the right mix of ingredients here, and and finally the situation came where this was going to happen. To me it was bound to happen eventually.
All right, but are the lessons learned by the storm chasers? Did it make sense to the storm chasers? So your video, you're analyzing the El Reno-tornado. What were the reactions on your video?
So I tried to highlight some of these safety lessons in a video, and the lessons that we could learn from it. And I think a lot of people took them to heart. I think a lot of people learned some things from them. I got a lot of positive feedback from it. Several of the National Weather Service offices are using that video for part of their spotter training, which is great. I love seeing that. People are paying attention. They're learning from this. At the same time, however, we do have several storm chasers who I don't think have really taken this seriously, and they're still getting very close. They're still racing the tornado across its path. We can keep trying to spread the word, and hopefully storm chasers will learn and some will take notice. But unfortunately, I think that we're going to see more deaths in the future just because people are still aggressively chasing large tornadoes at very close range, and they're still making mistakes in their positioning.
Is it like a rat race like now in the United States, with all these storm chasers wanting to have the most beautiful and close by images?
Yeah, I've used that term before. It is kind of a rat race with some storm chasers, and not all storm chasers, but for some it is a competition to get as close as you can and get the most dramatic shot. And there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, as long as you try to make safety a priority. You try not to be reckless. Because I feel like storm chasers should be responsible, and people look up to them, and they emulate their actions. But yeah, it is a competition, and there is a lot of aggressive storm chasing. At the same time, there's a lot of people who are very safety minded, and they hold their distance and they act responsibly. There's a lot of storm spotters out there who don't get into the tornado. They just report what they see and they go home. So there's a whole mix, but definitely there is a niche of aggressive storm chasing.
How do you deal with aggressive storm chasing?
It's something that can be avoided. To be honest, I consider myself a rather aggressive storm chaser. I feel like I get fairly close to tornadoes at times, but at the same time I try to be very proactive about being safety minded, picking my escape routes, knowing when to get out of there. We still have our close calls. I like to try and keep my spacing from other chasers. Basically, if you can avoid the crowds, that's a great thing. You don't want to get caught in traffic. You just want to be responsible and pay attention.
All right. Do you have tips for those here in Holland or Belgium who want to go out in storm chasing in America? Do you have to go by a tour, or can you do it by yourself, or do you think stay in Holland and Belgium? You don't know what you're doing. It's way too dangerous.
Sure. Yeah, I don't discourage anyone from getting into storm chasing. After all, I'm just kind of an amateur hobbyist. It's something that interested me, so then I just started doing it. So I feel like maybe it's a little bit part of my responsibility to try and help beginners start out on the right track. If you're coming from overseas, that's a huge investment. It costs a lot of money to fly over here and to chase. It's very, very expensive. If you want to see a storm and a tornado, if you want the best chances at seeing a storm and a tornado, and you want to do it safely, I think probably the most effective way to do that for a complete beginner is to sign up for a storm chasing tour. There's a couple that I recommend: Cloud9, Silver Lining, Tempest Tours, and the College of DuPage, which I'm driving for in June. Those are some of the best tours to go with. Those guys will get you your best shot at seeing a tornado. If you want to do it on your own, that's great. You can certainly do that too. I feel like you want to do a lot of research before you come over. Read some of the storm chasing essays by Chuck Doswell, Al Mohler, Greg Stumpf. These essays have been around for decades. They're basically required reading for all new storm chasers. There's a lot of forecasting tips on the internet that you can research. Basically read up on everything you can, and then once you're over here, you know, just be safety minded and follow the rules of the road, and you should have a great time. If you're coming over here by yourself for your first time, to be honest, I don't think you're going to see much. You might see some storms, but you're going to be really, really lucky if you catch a tornado. But it's worth a shot.
It's a wedge. It's a big wedge. Give me the motion. Left to right. Which way is it moving? It's moving to the right. Big wedge.
Because was that a scary monster?
Yeah, that was probably a top 3 intensity-wise intercept for me. That was a tornado that we could feel. We didn't. We weren't watching that tornado from afar. We could feel the power of it because the winds at our location were very, very strong, and we had the RFD wrapping around it that was hitting us, and we could see the objects that it was interacting with. Very, very intense intercept for us. We were too close, and when I say I am an aggressive storm chaser, that's what I mean, and that I feel like a beginner storm chaser should not have been in that position. That was dangerous.
All right. Because are you risking too much sometimes?
We have our close calls, but again, we very much try not to be dangerous, and to me that was a close call, but we took our escape route and we got out of there no trouble. And before we were on the tornado, we had our escape route picked out and ready to go, and all we were going to do was run east down the highway, and that would very quickly take us out of the path and away from the tornado. And that's what we did. We got out and we saw the tornado, and as soon as we realized we were in the path, we jumped in the van and we went east down the highway and we were out of there. Another storm chaser, I don't know what he was thinking, but he basically stopped at the same time we did, and then he decided to drive into the grass and then wait for the tornado to come to him. And he's lucky to be alive, but it blew his windows out and passed nearby. So to me that was a mistake that maybe a beginner might make, when instead, you know, if you take your escape route, you could just get out of there. So we were too close, but we got out of there no problem.
Okay. You always have to have an escape route, huh?
Yeah, to me that's crucial, and not just an escape route, a safe escape route, because like on El Reno, we saw storm chasers picking bad escape routes, and that was getting people hurt and killed. So you always have to have one ready to go, so that when you need to take it, you could take it like that, and make sure it's away from the tornado and not across its path. To me, those are the big lessons there.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Very nice chatting with you. I'll speak to you Sunday.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be around. You never know, we might be storm chasing. So, but if I can help out, I will try to. So.
Yeah. Okay. And if you're on location, that's only better.
Yeah.
Then we get the inside information. And,
yeah. Maybe I'll just turn on Skype and point it towards the tornado for you guys.
Okay, that's an appointment. Okay, thanks to you, Skip, again, and yeah, I'll talk to you later, yeah?
Okay, yeah, sounds good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Skip.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.